boys and girls, it's Mrs. Walker. Today we're going to practice with our measurement, but we're going to learn about a new strategy that we can use to help us measure, especially for times when we don't have a ruler with us. Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't always carry around a ruler in my back pocket everywhere I'm going to be able to say, oh, you know what? I really need to measure the length of this slide on the playground. Or, oh, I really need to measure the length of my math book. I don't normally carry around a ruler for that. So today we're going to learn about some different strategies that we can use to help us measure without rulers. So our learning goal for today says, I can use mental benchmarks to estimate the length of objects. So, mental benchmarks. Well, you know what? Let's just dive in and talk a little bit more about that. So I want you to take your pinky and I want you to put your pinky on a centimeter cube. So if you don't have a centimeter cube out, go grab one of those from your math toolkit. And I want you to put your pinky on top of the centimeter cube. So if you don't have it, pause it, go grab it, and come back. Okay, so hopefully you have your centimeter cube. So there's my centimeter cube. And I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to slide it right up on there. So when I look at that, would you say that that your pinky is about the same width as the centimeter cube? Like even when you look at your pinky and put it up on the centimeter cube. I know when I take my hand and slide it right up there like that, it looks pretty close to about the same width as the centimeter cube. It's not exact, but it's about the same. And remember when we talked about in our previous lesson, when we're estimating, you're talking about. It's not going to be the exact number, but it's going to be about close, about the same with it. So close to that, but it's not exact. So that has to do with estimating. So let's take a look at another way. Look at a door in your house. So pause the video real quick and go look at a door. Or if you can see one from where you're sitting, just look at a door. As you look at the door, see there's one, I want you to look at the length from the floor up to the doorknob. So right from there, so to the bottom of the floor, just to the doorknob. This is about 1 meter. So I know we just learned about meters in our previous lesson. So if you think about it, if you don't have a meter stick walking around with you, you can think about that as just the length from the floor to a doorknob. You can kind of picture that. Or there's so many places that you are where there's actually a door with a doorknob at it. So that can help you as well with it. So we can use other measurements to estimate length. So we can use our pinky for a centimeter cube and the distance from the floor to the doorknob as a benchmark for a meter stick or a meter. Okay, so those types of things are called mental benchmarks because you're having to kind of use maybe what you already know. That's the mental part. And the benchmark is a different object that you can use. So you can use your pinky or you can use from the floor to the doorknob. Those are examples of mental benchmarks. So they're not something that you're going to use with an actual ruler or a meter stick. It's something that is a different type of object that you're going to use to measure and estimate the length of something else. So let's jump in and practice some estimating together. So here I have my ruler. First, you're going to estimate the length of each line in centimeters using a mental benchmark. So think about what did we talk about you can use for centimeters for a mental benchmark. Instead of just getting out your ruler like I have here, you can actually use that mental benchmark that we just talked about. Then you're going to actually measure the line with a ruler to find the actual length. So for this part, we're actually going to work on this together, but this is what all of your concept development lesson is about today when you go do your problem set. Okay? So here is my line. One note is if your video is not full screen, click in the bottom corner, those little arrows. You can click that and it's going to make it full screen. That means it wants to take up the whole width and size of your screen. The reason that you want to do that is because then that will make your estimations much more accurate. If you don't do that and your video is about this big, you might fit maybe 1 or 2 pinkies on that actual line. So make sure it's the length, full screen, the size of your screen. Okay? So I want you, with this one, I want you to estimate how many centimeters you think that it is. So if I'm measuring in centimeters, Remember we talked about my mental benchmark is going to be my pinky. So I'm going to take my pinky and I'm going to put it up on the screen. Now, for me, sometimes it's hard when I go like this and then I try and put my other pinky next to it because my knuckles get in the way. So this is one way that you can try to be able to measure. You can take this finger and then take your other hand and hold it up this way and then keep that one and move it and move it. Remember, we're using that iteration almost with just two objects instead of one with it. But that helped me when I actually, instead of trying to go like this, when I could flip my hand up like that. That was just a trick for me, so maybe that might work easier for you too. Okay, so when I estimate this, I can come up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 5 or 6 is what I came up with. Because remember, an estimate doesn't have to be an exact number. It's just pretty close to what you think it might be. Okay, so let's actually measure it. So I slide it over. Look at that. The actual measurement is 6 centimeters. Okay. Notice too how in this, when I'm measuring with this, I brought it to the 0. You don't want to start measuring at the 1. You always want to start at 0. Okay. So let's take a look at another example. Ooh, so here's an even bigger one. Okay. So first, I think I have these out of order. Hang on. First, actually, you guys are going to estimate what you think the length is going to be. So maybe take those pinkies out again and estimate. Then we're actually going to slide it over and get that exact measurement. Okay, so go ahead and give your estimation of how long you think this is going to be. Whatever you think. Do you move those pinky fingers? If you need more time to estimate, go ahead and click pause so you have more time. I estimated that this is going to be about 13 centimeters. So let's see. So let's slide it over to actually measure it. Oh, and the actual measurement is 15 centimeters. Good job. So my estimate of 13 was pretty close. It's not exact, but it's pretty close. Maybe you guys might have been closer because my pinky finger is probably a little bit bigger than your pinky finger. There's those two parts. Here we go. So first we're going to estimate the length again, and then you're going to actually measure it. So here is your object. Estimate it. Okay, so pause the video so you have a little bit of time to estimate. When you're ready, click play, and we'll go on to actually measuring it together. Okay, so I came up with maybe about 9 centimeters with my fingers. Okay, so let's actually measure it. So the actual length is, what do you guys think? Yeah, it's 11. So my estimate was pretty close. An estimate doesn't have to be exact. It's not always going to be right, but you want to be close to it. So if I were to estimate that that line was 2 centimeters, that's not close. So that's not a realistic estimate of the length of that. If I were to say that it was 19 centimeters, that's too long. So it's definitely not an accurate or realistic estimation with it. So that's why you use those mental benchmarks that you have, those pinkies, to be able to help you make that estimate. Okay, so let's talk about with this one. We're going to use mental benchmarks to estimate the height of the slide. So there's an example for you. Think about when you see a height the height of a slide at a playground when you're going up the ladder. Do you think it's going to be 2 centimeters, or do you think it's going to be 2 meters? What do you guys think? Centimeters, remember, pinky, that's your mental benchmark for that. And from the floor to a doorknob, that's a meter. So about how high do you think a slide is? Yeah, it's about 2 meters. It's not going to be 2 pinkies, that's for sure. That is definitely a very small slide with it. Okay. What mental benchmark did you use? Did you use the pinky, or did you use the door from the floor to the doorknob? I used the door too, okay? The door to the floor, the floor to the doorknob. That helped me to be able to kind of come up with it. It's maybe about 2 meters long. Might be a little bit more, or could be a little bit less depending on the slide. But meters is definitely a better unit of measure to estimate the height of a slide than centimeters. Okay, let's take a look at another example. So we're going to use the mental benchmarks to estimate the width of the computer. So the width of the computer is about, so just from one side to the other, You think you want to use 15 centimeters or 15 meters? What do you guys think? Yeah, centimeters, okay? Centimeters, why do you want to use centimeters to measure this? Yeah, you're so right. Because a centimeter is a smaller unit of measure, and this is a smaller object. You don't want to use a meter stick. Remember, think about it. It's from the floor to the doorknob. That's not going to be an accurate representation of the width of your computer screen. Okay? So what mental benchmark did you use to estimate the width of the computer? Your pinky? Yeah, I would have used my pinky, maybe. Okay, that's definitely a closer estimate with your computer screen. Okay, it might maybe be a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, depending on the size of your computer, but definitely know that 15 meters is going to be way too big. Okay, so 15 centimeters is a closer estimate than 15 meters. All right, so you guys got this to be able to estimate using mental benchmarks. Remember, pinkies, right? And from the floor to the doorknob, those are mental benchmarks. Okay, so you guys are going to do a great job. Please head back on over to the module to see what you need to complete today for independent practice. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'm happy to be able to help. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye, friends.